Launched in 1956, the Ten Commandments transported global viewers into one of the most magnificent and definitive cinematic achievements in the history of Hollywood epics. The narrative unfolds in ancient Egypt, charting the life of Moses, the adopted son of the pharaoh's court, who uncovers his true heritage as an oppressed Hebrew slave. His existence pivots from one of palace opulence to a grueling choice: embrace the might of the throne or undertake the perilous mission to emancipate his people. This odyssey transcends mere rebellion. It is a profound testament to faith, highlighted by earth-shattering miracles: the Nile turning to crimson, the miraculous parting of the Red Sea, and the 10 plagues that devastate Egypt. The Ten Commandments is not simply a religious film, it is a sprawling saga about unwavering belief, the pursuit of liberty, and the resilience of the human spirit in the face of insurmountable odds. Under the direction of Cecil B. DeMille, featuring a colossal production scale, breathtaking sequences, and the unforgettable performance of Charlton Heston as Moses, this work secured its legacy as a golden standard in global cinema. Yet, beneath its grand, majestic facade lie countless peculiar and startling off-screen stories, including heated disagreements over scene composition, the actual dangers of filming the massive disaster sequences, and little-known details that were shielded from the public during the movie's creation. Join me as we delve into the 20 shocking secrets Hollywood covered up, the most astonishing and bizarre facts about the Ten Commandments, the masterwork that cemented the journey of Moses as an eternal silver screen icon. 1. A future music legend began his career as an uncredited drummer extra. In the Golden Calf Festival scene, amidst the wild crowd, a 21-year-old sat in a corner of the set, rhythmically beating a drum. The camera barely grazed his back, and his name received no credit. Yet, that young man was Herb Alpert, who would later achieve legendary status with the Tijuana Brass Band. From an anonymous film extra, Alpert launched himself into the music world, becoming an acclaimed trumpet player and earning numerous awards, thereby carving out a vibrant new chapter in American culture. It all began from a fleeting, uncredited moment on the set of The Ten Commandments. The film didn't just create cinematic marvels, it unintentionally sowed the seeds for legends in entirely different creative fields. 2. The voice of God from the burning bush was actually Charlton Heston's. In the pivotal scene where Moses kneels before the burning bush, audiences hear the voice of God, resonant, warm, and profoundly divine. Most assumed an anonymous voice actor was chosen to embody the voice of the Almighty. The surprising truth is that the voice belonged to Charlton Heston himself. To achieve the effect, technicians lowered his vocal pitch and extended its echo, creating the sensation that Moses was hearing and conversing with his own soul. This audacious creative choice elevated the scene beyond the ordinary, transforming it into a spiritual experience that deeply resonated with audiences. 3. A mysterious white-robed figure was sighted then vanished in the Egyptian desert. The sun beat down relentlessly on the filming location. Amid the hundreds of people dressed in heavy costumes, several crew members swore they saw a white-robed figure standing silently in the golden sand. The shape stood still for a short while, then suddenly vanished before their eyes as if it had never been there. Rumors quickly circulated. Some whispered that it was a ghost, others believed it was a spiritual guardian of the sand sent to observe the film's creation. Though only a rumor, the sighting left a vague, inexplicable chill, the feeling that an unseen presence was monitoring every shot. 4. A single scene. Requiring 3 weeks of filming led to curses of exhaustion. The Golden Calf Festival was orchestrated by DeMille as an orgy of frenzy. Wine flowing, music pounding, hundreds of extras dancing and screaming for hours on end. To capture this atmosphere of madness, the crew was forced to film for 3 straight weeks, under intense heat and blinding lights. Their physical strength was completely depleted, their sweat mixing with the sand. The elaborate, colorful costumes became unbearable burdens. The exhaustion became so intense that some actors began muttering in frustration. "Who do you have to sleep with to get out of this film?" Their forced laughter reflected the sheer depletion they endured. On screen, the audience saw staged delirium. In reality, that delirium was simply the erosion of human endurance. 5. Baby Moses. floating on the Nile was played by Charlton Heston's actual son. Did you feel a sense of dread watching the iconic scene of baby Moses in the basket, drifting on the Nile? That innocent face filmed under the Egyptian sun belonged to Fraser Heston, Charlton Heston's 3-month-old son. This casting choice created a powerful and emotional fusion of cinema and actual bloodline. As the camera slowly tracked the shot, audiences watched a fragile, vulnerable infant amid the water. For Heston, this was his own flesh and blood embodying the legendary figure. He would cradle his son after every take, his eyes full of pride and tenderness. The moment became one of the film's most deeply humane touches, where myth and reality became inextricably linked. 6. A crew member's insult and the director's unexpected response erupted in laughter. During the Golden Calf Festival sequence, hundreds of extras were dancing exhaustedly under blistering heat, their elaborate costumes soaked with sweat. In the middle of the commotion, an actress's frustrated voice was caught by the microphone system. "When will that filthy bald old man let us break for lunch?" The entire set immediately fell silent. Hundreds of eyes turned to Cecil B. DeMille, the notoriously strict director known for his explosive temper. The tension was palpable. Everyone expected an immediate, thunderous reprimand. Instead, DeMille, with his famously shiny bald head, paused for a moment and then unexpectedly shouted, "Lunch!" A massive roar of laughter erupted across the entire set. In that rare moment, the crew realized that even their demanding master could momentarily turn into a good-humored jester. 7. Many of the film's divine miracles were secretly crafted by Disney animators. Few people realize that behind the Ten Commandments' divine special effects, from the fiery pillar tearing through the sky to God's finger carving the tablets, lay the unmistakable influence of Disney. Paramount secretly contracted top animators from the world's most famous animation studio. They utilized the experience gained from Fantasia and other magical projects, skillfully blending real light with intricate hand-layered animation techniques. The result was a series of scenes that transcended the technical capabilities of 1950s filmmaking. Audiences saw fire burning without consuming and luminous letters being etched into stone as if by an invisible, divine hand. 8. Ancient Egyptian props were later reused in the futuristic Star Trek universe. Hundreds of silver goblets, intricately detailed wine jugs, and luxurious golden censers that lavishly decorated the pharaoh's palace did not simply disappear after filming concluded. They were cataloged and stored in Paramount's central prop warehouse, where they lay dormant for decades. In a bizarre twist of cinematic fate, these ancient Egyptian artifacts resurfaced in the TV series Star Trek: The Next Generation in 1993. Audiences watched as 24th century astronauts drank from the very same goblets used by ancient Egyptians in the movie. This created a strange, invisible thread linking the two legends, a cross-cinematic journey from the Bible to the pharaohs to outer space. 9. The actor playing Pharaoh secretly engaged in weightlifting to appear equally imposing. It seems incredible, but beneath the magnificent exterior of Pharaoh Rameses, actor Yul Brynner harbored a quiet insecurity: his height. At just 1.73 meters tall, he was physically dwarfed by Charlton Heston, who stood nearly 1.91 meters and possessed a muscular, warrior-like build. Brynner recognized that if he was visibly overshadowed by his co-star, the image of the mighty pharaoh would immediately falter. Consequently, he threw himself into a grueling physical regimen. Every day, Brynner was seen in the gym lifting heavy weights and performing pull-ups, sculpting his body as if preparing for a literal battle. His resulting toned physique and broadened shoulders made him a symbol of power equal to his rival. On screen, Rameses was transformed from a potential faint shadow into a formidable and commanding pharaoh. This silent dedication ensured the role became legendary. 10. The director barely survived a near-fatal fall from a towering on-set scaffold. The filming location for the Ten Commandments in 1955 was a mammoth operation in the desert, characterized by thousands of costumed extras, intense lighting rigs, and blazing hot sand. Presiding over this spectacle was Cecil B. DeMille, the legendary King of Epics, who routinely climbed and directed from a 40-meter-tall metal scaffold, holding his megaphone and overseeing every minuscule detail. At the age of 73, an age when most retire, DeMille was driven by an uncompromising zeal to deliver the greatest work of his career. However, tragedy nearly struck during a peak moment of authority. He was suddenly overwhelmed by severe chest pain and collapsed, narrowly avoiding a catastrophic plunge off the scaffolding, much to the terror of the entire film crew. Rushed to the hospital, doctors issued a stark warning: if you continue, you will die. DeMille merely offered a weak smile and countered that he would prefer to die while working than live a life incomplete. True to his stubborn nature, the aging director returned just 2 days later, his voice once again thundering through the megaphone, commanding his cinematic army like an unyielding general. The looming threat of death could not extinguish the fiery passion that propelled the Ten Commandments. That audacity ultimately paid off as the movie became an enduring monument, cherished by millions. Yet, if that anecdote was enough to make the crew flinch, what was hidden within the Egyptian darkness was even more unsettling. 11. The terrifying Death Angel scene featured a real concealed human skull. Did you feel a pervasive chill when the eerie green vapor slowly drifted across the floors of Egypt in the Ten Commandments? This moment was designed to plunge the audience into a chilling anticipation of death, a vague, inexplicable terror. The secret behind the haunting effect is that DeMille and the technical crew deliberately embedded the image of an actual human skull within the creeping fog. While no theatergoer could consciously point it out, the human eye and the subconscious mind registered its cold, macabre outline. The resulting fear was not triggered by a clear visual, but by a deep-seated, primal dread. Audiences shivered, their hearts racing as they heard the echoing wails, because they were witnessing a depiction of death that contained an element of macabre reality, not just mere cinematic trickery. It stopped being merely a scene and transformed into an experience that tapped into the deepest human instinct, the direct confrontation with mortality. And if a spectral image could incite such terror, imagine the panic when the set itself faced a live, deadly creature. 12. A highly venomous king cobra escaped, creating instant pandemonium on set. In the Ten Commandments, snakes frequently appear as potent symbols of lethal power and demise. Consequently, the set often hosted these fearsome reptiles. However, for DeMille, artificial visual effects were never sufficient. He demanded that every frame convey genuine danger and biblical authenticity. To achieve this, the crew introduced a live king cobra for the sequence where Moses' staff transforms into a snake. Initially, the snake smoothly slithered across the sand, its glossy scales catching the blazing lights, creating a breathtaking and chilling visual. Hundreds of eyes were fixated on the deadly serpent, awaiting a signature cinematic moment. But a disaster struck without warning. The cobra broke free from its handler's control. It quickly darted toward the camera, weaving through electrical wires and hot lights. Instantly, the set devolved into absolute chaos. Screams erupted everywhere. Extras abandoned their props. Crew members scrambled frantically to escape, some stumbling, others nearly entangled in the chaotic mess of cables. Fear, sweat, and sand converged into an unprecedented scene of panic. It took almost an hour to finally recapture the snake and restore a fragile semblance of calm. After that incident, no one dared to underestimate the power of live venom again. 13. The biblical hailstorm disaster was created, using an edible common snack. Once the danger subsided, another production secret emerged from a seemingly innocuous food item. Audiences in 1956 were stunned in theaters as the plague of hail descended upon Egypt. The sky darkened, lightning tore through the air, and white chunks rained down, blanketing Pharaoh's palace. Everyone believed they were witnessing the wrath of God, an unmatched cinematic miracle. However, the truth behind the scene is rather humorous. All those biblical hailstones were simply popcorn that had been painted white. The technical team, under pressure to create a massive disaster while ensuring actor safety, decided on using popcorn. The light kernels fell without causing pain and could be hurled at actors repeatedly without injury. Crucially, after each take, the crew could easily sweep them up, collect them, and reuse them for the next shot. Coupled with vibrant Technicolor lighting and layered sound effects, harmless popcorn was transformed into a weapon of divine judgment. And if popcorn could convince the world of a miracle, wait until you learn what material was used to create the Red Sea spectacle. 14. The Red Sea miracle was artificially constructed with a thick, sticky additive. The pivotal moment when Moses raises his staff and the sea cleaves into two colossal walls of water left millions of viewers gasping and cemented the scene as a pinnacle of cinematic achievement. In reality, however, there was no computer-generated imagery, CGI, only audacious imagination and a sticky thickening agent. The special effects team constructed two enormous water tanks, which they filled with water mixed with gelatin to increase its viscosity. They then released the liquid to simulate a massive torrent. When the footage was played in reverse, the audience witnessed the sea magically part, the water standing as towering frozen waves, with dust rising as if driven by a supernatural wind. 6 months of preparation and dozens of demanding tests were devoted to a single sequence that lasted less than 10 minutes. But that dedication is precisely what defined the scene as a true cinematic miracle. 15. The elegant Audrey Hepburn was rejected due to her figure not being voluptuous enough. Do you admire and adore Audrey Hepburn, that global symbol of Hollywood grace? Despite her widespread appeal, Hepburn faced a sharp, personal rejection. When DeMille began casting for Princess Nefretiri, Hepburn's name was seriously considered. She entered the audition room with her signature clear eyes, gentle smile, and poise that commanded attention. However, in DeMille's private notes, a cold, specific observation was recorded: lovely but not enough figure. This judgment related to her famously slender physique and her bust size, which the director deemed insufficient to fill the heavily beaded, pearl-encrusted costumes intended for a seductive, powerful Egyptian queen. The role ultimately went to Anne Baxter, who possessed the more generous figure deemed necessary to embody the essence of Egyptian desire and power. Hepburn quietly withdrew, while outside the production, thousands of stone tablets bearing the Ten Commandments were being erected across the United States. 16. The installation of over 4,000 stone tablets caused a landmark legal conflict. No one in the 1950s could have predicted that a movie publicity campaign would result in a half-century-long legal precedent. Paramount Pictures and DeMille financed the installation of over 4,000 stone tablets depicting the Ten Commandments across America, in public parks, town squares, and even outside courthouses and government buildings. For DeMille, this was more than just marketing. It was a strong statement that the Ten Commandments formed the bedrock of moral freedom. Yet, these seemingly unmoving monuments ignited a ferocious constitutional controversy. Separationist groups argued that the placement of the tablets violated the Establishment Clause, challenging the principle of the separation of church and state. In 2005, one such tablet located in Texas became the subject of a case brought before the U.S. Supreme Court, drawing national attention. The final ruling permitted the tablet to remain, recognizing its cultural and historical significance rather than purely religious value. A film promotion campaign thus unintentionally carved its name into American legal history. 17. A casual viewing of the film inspired Metallica's iconic song, Creeping Death. While those stone tablets stood firm through the decades, across the country in California, a young metal band found the inspiration for an enduring song. In 1983, inside a modest California home, 3 members of Metallica gathered around a television watching a VHS copy of the Ten Commandments. The dim green glow of the screen illuminated their faces as the Death Angel sequence played, the terrifying mist slowly advancing, seeping into the Egyptian homes to claim the lives of the firstborn. Cliff Burton, the bassist, suddenly exclaimed, "It's like creeping death!" That phrase struck like lightning. James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich immediately recognized it as the perfect foundation for a new song. From that spontaneous remark, the legendary track Creeping Death was conceived, a powerful thrash metal retelling of the biblical plagues. Today, on concert stages, thousands of fans scream, "Die, die," during the chorus, as if they themselves are witnessing the plagues of Egypt. A 1956 biblical epic inadvertently planted the seed for a legendary 1984 metal anthem. 18. The Egyptian princess's sensual portrayal ignited a fierce Hollywood culture war. When Anne Baxter made her entrance as Princess Nefretiri, the entire audience was mesmerized. Her fiercely defined eyes, vibrant red lips, and every seductive curve made viewers momentarily forget they were watching a religious film. DeMille considered her the perfect casting choice, a compelling symbol of both alluring beauty and lethal power. However, many conservative religious organizations were deeply offended. They argued that Baxter's sultry gaze and cunning smile rendered the character too worldly and profane, thus undermining the sacred nature of the Exodus story. The controversy swept through Hollywood. Some critics praised Nefretiri as a bold, new icon of female sensuality. Others angrily demanded a boycott of the film. That very public division, however, inadvertently contributed to the film's immense popularity. 19. A biblical plague scene was fully filmed, then scrapped and lost forever. To faithfully render the 10 plagues that afflicted Egypt, DeMille spared no expense or effort. He even staged an elaborate sequence for the plague of frogs. Hundreds of live frogs were released inside the palace, crawling over the throne and leaping erratically across the stone floors, aiming to recreate the described biblical chaos. The scene required weeks of planning, with the crew enduring the stench and slimy mess. But when the footage was shown in test screenings, the audiences burst into laughter. Instead of fear, they found amusement in the frogs' inadvertently comical movements. DeMille was astonished. A sacred plague had been turned into a farce. He had no choice but to cut the entire scene, which subsequently vanished from the final film. The 9th biblical plague became the 11th plague for the exhausted film crew. 20. Moses' robe. Uncannily matched, ancient priestly attire by pure chance. Charlton Heston was costumed in a red, black, and white striped robe. DeMille chose the pattern simply because he felt the contrasting colors would stand out brilliantly in Technicolor. Years later, however, religious historians and archaeologists were astounded to discover that those exact colors were the traditional ceremonial colors of the Levite priests, the tribe to which Moses historically belonged in the Bible. No one in the production crew was aware of this startling historical coincidence. To audiences, Moses appeared on screen not merely as a prophet, but as a powerfully authentic historical figure. The robe, by sheer accident, transformed Heston into an undeniably authentic Moses, blurring the boundary between cinema and enduring myth. The Ten Commandments, 1956, is a cinematic landmark that has defied the passage of time, remaining an immortal icon of Hollywood epics. The film not only brings to life one of the Bible's most sacred narratives, but also showcases grand scenes that remain unprecedented. Every frame inspires a sense of awe, being both majestic and deeply humane. Over half a century later, the work continues to earn global admiration, reverence, and wonder.